Hey everyone, this is Niall from nocode.tech and I'm here with Borya, who is the CEO of airSlate. This is another one of our interviews in our series on some pretty cool and interesting no-code tools. And so we'll hear a little bit about airSlate and what it can do. So Borya, thank you very much for coming along. Would you mind telling me a wee bit about airSlate and what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, thanks very much for inviting me over. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm really excited for the conversation ahead. Um, airSlate is the most powerful and largest no-code document workflow automation platform. It is a combination of everything you need in order to automate end-to-end both business processes and especially with emphasis on business processes that involve documents. So this is document generation, this is RPA, it includes data ingestion. It includes conditional routing and diagramming the workflows, and it includes e-signature components as well. And the modularity of airSlate allows you to create unique document workflows as well as business automation workflows. Essentially without writing a line of code. And I know we're gonna talk a little bit about it later, but it really provides you with the only tool available on the market to do multi-cloud document workflow automation, where the data can reside anywhere on the cloud, whether on AWS or whether in a system of record like a CRM or NetSuite, and then the combination of that data flow onto the end user and then back again, whether that end user is a customer or an employee or somebody like that. airSlate allows you to do that. And the other thing that I think is unique about airSlate is that it allows you to create beautiful end customer experiences with combinations of a lot of different types of documents, whether those documents are PDF, whether they are contracts and are modifiable and redlineable, whether they are HTML forms, whether they are videos and other rich internet experiences. We provide you with the ability to create these experiences for your end user.
Awesome. Sounds really cool. I mean, it sounds like a huge platform you've got there. But let's maybe kind of start from, I guess, how it all came about. I mean, we were doing a little bit of research on you and before this interview, and we saw that you've got a pretty impressive academic background. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how did you then kind of get from there to the no-code space?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to give you kudos. You guys really did do a lot of research, and that research is very comprehensive. So, congratulations. Not everybody prepares as well as you do.
Thanks.
Um, so yes, it's true. I am an accidental entrepreneur. I was a faculty member at Boston University and then at Harvard doing computational biophysics and bioinformatics. And really, is the computational analysis of biological systems. So, in the example of a DNA, for example, when in the 90s they digitized DNA by using robots, they basically turned what is a chemical signal of ACTG into what is the digital analog of that chemical signal, right? So like you can represent your DNA as four letters in a computer, like A, C, T, and G. And so a lot of what computational biophysicists and bioinformaticians did in the early days is try to make sense of a lot of that data, right? So like you have a lot of this biological data, but you don't know what it means. You don't know where genes start. You don't know where proteins are coded, like a lot of stuff like that. And the analog of that is imagine you have Moby Dick, and you take out all of the punctuations and all of the capital letters, and you just leave one long string of letters in Moby Dick. And I give you that book, and I ask you, can you please tell me where each one of the letters, one of the words start in Moby Dick, and what is that book about? And that's a very sort of simple analog of what bioinformaticians did. And so I did that for my 20s. And then I left in 2008. I left academia to start my first company, which was meant to create a little bit of a more fair world for scientists to exchange their information. Think about sort of like Twitter for scientists, right? So the ability to publish your work, the ability to gain feedback from other people that are in your networks, these kinds of things. It was the heydays of social networks. Facebook just, came out and like stuff like that. So it was, everybody was doing social networks, including me. So I made all of the wrong mistakes and I made all of the wrong decisions and basically made all of the wrong kind of rookie mistakes as an entrepreneur. And in 2011, I joined my friend and my co-founder, Vadim, and he was doing PDF filler. And what I brought to it was the marketing technology that allowed PDF filler to scale. At that time, PDF filler was only one person and was doing PDF editing software that was in the cloud. And the browser. It was one of the very first and one of the few that were available. And then we scaled that significantly to hundreds of thousands of users within the next 4 years. And what we the relationship there is that actually bioinformatics and the statistical analysis of biological systems is very similar to statistical analysis of the internet or statistical analysis of intent of people that are on the internet. Basically, like a lot of these companies that are doing content distribution, like Google and Facebook and stuff like that, the algorithms that they use are very similar to the algorithms that bioinformaticians use in order to figure out what the actual sort of meaning of biology is. And that's how I became sort of the marketing, the internet marketing sort of piece of PDF filler in a lot of ways. And then what happened was that we understood that our customers that came to use the PDF editing solution, what they really wanted to do was they wanted to include that ability, because PDFs are just a way to represent information to the end user. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to include that representation in some workflow automation, right? So they wanted to take the data and put it onto PDF. They wanted to extract the data from a PDF and put it into a different system of record. They wanted to automatically route that PDF to different people depending on particular particular things that would happen. Or if somebody answered one question one way, it would route to one person. If somebody answered a different question a different way, it would route to a different person. And so what became clear to us is that there's basically two ways to accomplish that. The traditional way to accomplish that is through an API, right? So you provide an API to the end user, and then the end user then uses that API in order to construct what they want out of the tool that you give them. And the other way to do that is through this no-code automation. And that was really the genesis of airSlate. And really, airSlate came about because we understood the need for people to be able to configure and deploy these workflows, oftentimes including some sort of PDF document inside of these workflows, but in a way which is easier than just using an API, because APIs are really expensive to configure, to deploy. They need IT departments, and they're not really accessible to just sort of line managers and individual contributors. And one of the things that we really wanted to do was expand that universe of people that could benefit from automation, from people who are highly technical to people who have a problem that they need to solve, but may not have the technical resources, either because their IT department is too busy, or because they don't have an IT department, or because they want to rely on somebody else in order to do a lot of the hard work. And so that was really the progression from my career as a faculty member in bioinformatics to an entrepreneur, and specifically an entrepreneur in the no-code space.
That's an incredible journey. And I guess then, so you kind of started with PDF filler, and that was all about working with PDFs. Then you realized people wanted to do things with those PDFs. They wanted to take information and move it around. And that then led to the realization that, okay, well, now we need to make this available to non-technical people. So I guess, and how long ago was PDF Filler? That was that 8, 9 years ago you first formed that
Yep.
company?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
And so, so you kind of mentioned you obviously kind of grew that company to lots and lots of users over a few years. At what point did PDF Filler become airSlate?
Yeah. So actually, there was an intermediary step there, which I forgot to mention, which is we bought an e-signature solution called Sign Now, which is also part of our portfolio of products.
Hmm.
And the e-signature solution is actually very interesting because it's very light workflow automation in the sense that it does pretty much only two or three things from an automation perspective. It allows you to send a document to somebody else once somebody signs, if there's two signatures that are required. And it allows you to add some sort of like authorization and expiration options, right? And what we found was that the customers that came to us, and this was, we bought Sign Now in 2017. And what we found was that customers that came to us, they had a need in order to um, in order to do more automation. So extract data from different resources, push data to different resources, do conditional routing, do all of those things that airSlate now allows them to do. And so in shortly after we bought Sign Now, but basically in 2018, we started thinking about, well, how do you improve on a very light workflow automation tool like an e-signature solution, and how do you make it a powerful, workflow automation solution? And that's really was the genesis. So we started thinking about it in 2018. We started building it in 2019, and we went to beta in the end of 2019, and then to alpha in the middle of 2020. So airSlate as a product, as the whole comprehensive platform, has been around for about 18 months.
Awesome. That's really, really cool. I love that. And so, yeah, fast forwarding on to today, how big exactly is airSlate? How many employees do you have?
Yeah, so the company as a whole has about 875 employees currently. Um, yeah, and we're going to approach 1 million paying customers this year. And we are north of $100 million ARR company, growing very, very fast.
It's really impressive company you've built there. And so it sounds like there's obviously lots of different companies getting value from airSlate or PDF Filler or really, the kind of automations that you've got, e-signature, whatever it might be. But what kind of companies out there are actually using airSlate? Who's your kind of target or ideal customer, and who kind of gets the most value from airSlate?
Yeah. So I think that what the beauty of airSlate is that it's a very horizontal product, right? So, and I think that it's very similar to a horizontal product like, a spreadsheet or Airtable or Smartsheets or something like that, where really the user creates the experience in the full sense of the world. And so, from a use case perspective, we have a very, very broad distribution. From a company perspective, I think some of the early adopters have been higher education, colleges, universities, these kinds of people. So, for example, New School of Architecture uses airSlate. Basically, they took the registrar's office and they turned that whole thing into an airSlate deployment, adding classes, dropping classes, transferring credits, asking for personal time off. These kinds of things. All of that works out of airSlate currently for the New School of Architecture. And that's about a school of about 500 students. We also have seen some significant traction in state and local government, so SLED. Sometimes even more, sometimes on a federal level. So one of our largest customers is the government of Australia, that basically does all of the freedom of information requests for a particular department inside of the government, excuse me, out of airSlate. So they have thousands and thousands of people that use us. The legal profession, so like small and medium legal offices, law offices that use us for, obviously they have a lot of document workflows. And so they use us for a lot of the document workflow automation. but they supplement that with a lot of the employee onboarding and specifically customer onboarding workflows, which also require a lot of the document workflow automation, but also can be combined with first payments, SOWs, MSAs, and other documents that need to be negotiated and signed. And then I think finally, we see a lot of traction in the healthcare industry, where small and medium healthcare clinics use us for patient onboarding and then keeping track of the patient's progress as they progress throughout their tenure with those providers.
Awesome, that's really cool. And I think it's something we're really, really bullish here at nocode.tech on the ability for these kind of companies to make workflows and create them. To my mind, it's something that even go back 5 years ago, and probably even less than that, it was just kind of unavailable. Like if you want to go and build your own custom system for a healthcare clinic or for an architecture school, whatever it might be, you were really looking at 6 figures of dev work. Somebody would build something that wouldn't look great, wouldn't work great. Then you've got to have, a dev shop and retainer to come back and do it. I think we're right at the beginning of this transformation when people realize they can use these tools to change their business and to just make things quicker and easier and start to bring, in particular admin processes and these kind of things into the 21st century. But one of the things that I find quite interesting is, so I've done a lot of work on sort of, I guess what you'd call enterprise companies in no code and sort of, yeah, spent a lot of time talking to decision makers and that kind of thing. But almost the interesting thing is when you speak to somebody who just works at a company, they could do any job. And almost everybody who works at any large company, as a company grows, obviously it gets less efficient, and so almost anybody has some sort of idea of how they would improve things. A different process, a different way of doing stuff, and so. To me, no code and the kind of tools that you're building is the first time that people can actually be empowered to do that themselves. They don't have to just, hope and pray that something changes in the future in their process. They can just kind of do that. So I guess the question I've got for you then is, okay, we've talked a little bit about the companies that airSlate's in, but who then tends to be the end user? Is that usually the IT department, or is it just, random people who use the tool within the company? How does that tend to work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question. And I mean, I think you hit on a lot of the things that I was going to say myself as well. And I think you're spot on there for a lot of the things that you said in the question itself. I think no code is about democratization and empowerment. And I think that that's exactly what it's about. And those tools give the power of providing significant amount of value in the hands of people that didn't have that power before, right? And so that's exactly what we see in airSlate end users. A lot of our end users are people who are, essentially like, line managers, right, or individual contributors. So in the case of the New School of Architecture, it was the registrars. It was actually the guy who was the registrar that did all of these workflows by himself. And that's primarily the end user for a lot of our, almost all of them, because all you have to do is go through and either figure it out by yourself. And I'd say 50% of our customers figure it out on themselves. But if they can't, we also provide an academy and certification program where you can go through and there's like a set of, courses that you actually complete, and then you're off and running. And on average, the people who start workflows in airSlate do, expand to about 5 workflows within the first 3 to 4 months. And so like that's, I think is a testament to the success of the no code approach in order to empower these people. And I mean, I think that the mission of the company as a whole is to empower tens of millions of people that before this, had to do these kinds of menial, manual processes, and were really like line workers, and were doing things which can be automated. Not only can they be automated for efficiency, but they can be automated for the accuracy. You get accuracy benefits, you get efficiency benefits, and frankly, you get security and compliance benefits as well, because everything when it's done by a robot, but when it's done by a bot inside of airSlate, everything is auditable and you can see what has been done, when it's been done. You can extract all of that, history and information. When humans do it, they're prone to error. They get tired. They, get bored, all sorts of different stuff. And robots don't, And so I think that you're exactly right. I think we're in the beginning of that movement towards automation of knowledge workers in general, where the knowledge workers themselves become the engineers and they become empowered to create their own sort of workflows. In a lot of ways, like the 1900s saw the automation of the line worker in the auto industry, and a lot of those people then became the engineers that maintained and created the machines, which did the work that individual people did before them.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think one of the things that that we kind of often get asked is, right, okay, it's no code, you don't need to be able to be technical, but surely you still need something, some kind of skill, or sometimes I guess some sort of mindset or something like that. Um, do you guys tend to find that there's a certain type of person who does well with airslate? Is it maybe someone who's inquisitive, or someone who is good at pitching systems, or is it just anybody? Like who tends to find it easiest to be successful on airslate?
Actually, we have a solution engineers group, and our head of solution engineers, Colin, he really, I think, has it spot on. He says, anybody that is capable of using a spreadsheet, like an Excel spreadsheet, would be able to use and would find using airSlate easy, right? So I think that's sort of the level of technical prowess that you need in order to actually. And I don't mean like pivot tables or like complicated formulas. I mean like you can organize the data in rows and columns, kind of thing, right? And then get something out of that. And I think a lot of it is very similar to airSlate, right? So it's anybody that wants to, certainly the mindset has to be like, I want more organization, I want less mess, I want to be able to spend time on more meaningful things than I'm currently spending time, and then automate the things that I'm, not, creating a lot of value with.
Yeah, awesome, cool. So there's lots of other automation platforms out there as well, like Zapier, for example. What makes airslate different or makes it stand out from some of the competition?
Yeah. So we're the only ones that actually have a combination of a Zapier-like RPA with a human in the middle, experience creation, for example, like a SurveyMonkey, or like an e-signature solution like Sign Now, for example. So basically, it's the ability to automate the actions on one hand, but also create the experiences for a human to interact with, and then bring that data back from the human. So it's the combination of those two that makes airslate completely unique in the marketplace.
Awesome, cool. And so I believe at the minute, you mentioned you've got, I think, roughly around, or just about to come up to 1 million paying customers, but I believe in terms of actual users, I mean, it's a staggering number, something like 87 million. Is that
Yeah,
is that right?
that's right.
Um, so that's pretty impressive. But how did you actually find like your very first users? If you can go all the way back, how did you find the first people to use Airslate, or maybe even PDF filler?
Yeah, so I think PDF filler is the same way. I mean, we are very focused on inbound marketing, right? So in a lot of ways, the same way that our friends at HubSpot do inbound marketing, and other people that do inbound marketing, combined with a freemium model, in the sense that people can come in and try the product for free. And I think that that gives the best results to find people at the time of need. And I think it's very important to find people at the time when they are interested in actually using your products and can find your products meaningful, because I think the engagement rate with the products is completely different, rather than for when you go out and say, hey, look, I have this great product, why don't we find a use for it? It's sort of like, to every nail there's a hammer. And so we basically started writing blogs, and we started writing about how having a cloud-based PDF editor can be useful and what you can do with it. And we started getting traffic from people that would be interested in it, and we provided them with the ability to try the product for free. And that was really the genesis of our first products. Of our first customers. And I think that for airSlate, actually, it was a little bit different because airSlate is a consequence of customers that come to PDF Filler and to Sign Now and ask for something more. And so our first customers for airSlate are actually our old customers from PDF Filler that wanted more stuff. And so we're like, hey, now we have more stuff. And so now these three products are actually integrated into a maturity grid in the sense that people that want to do certain actions, but they find themselves in PDF Filler can easily, transition onto Sign Now if they wanted to, for example, like add an e-signature component to their like PDF editing solution. And then they can transition easily from an e-signature solution onto a document workflow automation inside of airSlate if they wanted something more, if they wanted integrations or conditional routing or other things which are not immediately provided by a simple e-signature solution like Sign Now.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned integrations there. Clearly, the ability to integrate with other products and send data around or manipulate, those kind of products and service is a really core part of airSlate. Um, at what kind of point did it become like? When did people just start coming to you and asking to integrate? When did you get that kind of inbound interest? Was that hard, or were people jumping at the chance to kind of build an integration with airSlate?
I think that the statistics say that an average small and medium enterprise, SME, like probably, on the order of like 100 to 1,000 people are running on 120 cloud applications. I mean, that's a staggering number of cloud applications to run on. And I think that the cloud brought with it a lot of solutions, but also a lot of problems. And the major problem is that each one of these verticalized SaaS solutions provides its own data jail. And in order for you to extract the data out of the jail, there's been a lot of companies that have been built whose sole purpose is to extract the data out of its SaaS data jail. Zapier is one example of that. Workato is another. MuleSoft. A lot of the middleware, what I call middleware RPA players, are essentially, are tasked with that, with extracting the data from these SaaS applications. But what they lack, like I mentioned before, is that creation of that user experience, right? So they have to rely on other, applications in order to create the user experience. But when people wanted to, for example, start, people run a lot of their businesses out of Google spreadsheets. So when they want to, take a bunch of this data, which people bring them, like for example, work orders, and they take these work orders and they bring them back onto a Google spreadsheet because they use the Google spreadsheet as a database. And so they would come to me and say, like, look, we have these things where we're signing document work orders with you, but now we need that information useful. It's not useful for us on the PDF document itself. We need it in a digital form so that we can do something with it. And we want to integrate it with, and then name your poison, like Salesforce or NetSuite or a Google spreadsheet or like, anything like that. And we don't know how to do that. And before, we'd used to have to say to them, look, the only way you can do that is through an API. So, here's the API, you can do it. And now what we did was we basically took the most common requests, like take the data out of the document and put it onto a Google spreadsheet. Well, we have a bot for that. And now all you have to do is click a button, connect to your Google spreadsheet, map the fields onto the columns. And that bot, every time that it takes new information, is going to insert that new information into a Google spreadsheet. And so basically that's what we did was we took the most common kind of requests, modularize them, and then put them into bots, which can be combined with any workflow that you want to use them in.
That's really, really cool. And so you've got workflows, you've got bots, you've got integrations. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But what is your favorite integration or workflow that you've got? Is there something that's really cool or does something really interesting?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of them. One of my favorite ones is a two-way binding integration bot. And basically what it does is it's the only one of its kind. And I think that it's super cool. Basically, let's imagine you have a document, and on that document you have fields, and you bind these fields to certain cells inside of the Excel spreadsheet. And basically, when you type in the Excel, it'll show up on the document, and the other way around. When you actually change the fields, they immediately show up in the Excel spreadsheet. And so there's this data binding, real-time data binding between an Excel spreadsheet and the document where that data actually shows up. I mean, I think that's one of my favorite ones. Um, I think that a lot of my favorite workflows, I don't know that I have a favorite workflow necessarily, but there's definitely a lot of really interesting ones that people have come up with. From the most common ones are really sort of interactions between a business and its employees, or the interactions between a business and its customers. Whether that interaction is at the beginning stages, like onboarding, or whether that interaction is in the middle stages, like, for example, quoting and sending out work orders and things like that, or even at the end stages. But yeah, a lot of that stuff. The things that people come up with is really, really innovative using airSlate, and I think that's the thing that makes me the happiest, in order to see like how people express their creativity, I would say, using a tool like airSlate.
Awesome. And so can just anybody come along and just add an integration to the airSlate platform, or is it a partnering process? Is it a marketplace? How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you. One of the things that we're releasing in the second half of this year is a marketplace where people can write bots onto our platform. And basically, the cool thing about it is that before, if you created an API integration, it was only available to you, and nobody else would be able to use it. But now, if you create an integration, you can sort of envelop it into a bot and then have other people be able to use it. And we're really excited about that. And that's coming in the second half of this year. And then we're going to do the same thing with workflow automation. So we have workflow templates. We have hundreds and hundreds of them. But one of the things that we're excited about is creating a marketplace where people can create these workflows for other people, and then other people can reuse those templates inside of their own workspaces. So we're really excited about that as well.
Cool, no, that's really interesting. There's another thing that I wanted to ask you. Again, we were doing a research online. We saw that you described yourself as an online marketing lover, and so are there any kind of interesting marketing strategies that airslate's kind of played with? What kind of worked, what didn't work, and what are some of the interesting ones?
Yeah. I think that we are definitely digital marketing first, right? So we are very content driven company and inbound marketing driven company. And I think that that shows up in a lot of things that we do. And I think that one of some things that really work is providing value to customers very, very early on in their journey. So really bringing them in on the problem that they have rather than the solution that you have. And I think that's really the most important important lesson that we've learned over the years. It's not about you. It's not about how great your product is. It's about the customer, and it's about what problem they have that you can potentially solve, and how you can do that better than their existing solutions. And really, that sort of defines who we are as a company, because we're very customer centric, independently of like how small the customer is or how large the customer is. The customer always comes first in a lot of ways, right? And we always want to um, help the customer at the point of their problem, rather than say like, okay, well, we don't know how to do that. We'll always try to find a workaround, or get a partner to help, or a solution engineer to help with solving a problem, no matter like how weird it sounds in the beginning, right? Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the most important part of our marketing.
Yeah, awesome. And I like what you're kind of saying there around about, it's about helping the customer with their problem, not showing them your solution. I think that's a piece of advice that's out there. A lot of people talk about that in marketing, but it's really hard to actually internalize it and actually, you kind of hear it and you go, okay, that makes sense. But then you kind of find it actually takes a lot of practice to get that right and to really get good at that. It's not an
Absolutely.
easy thing, even if you know it, it's not easy. Cool. And so where's airSlate kind of going next? What's happening the rest of 2021, 2022 and beyond? What's the big plans?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think, like you mentioned in the beginning, and I think alluded to, we're just in the beginning stages of a secular shift of knowledge workers, and the number of knowledge workers is staggering. I mean, I think I've seen numbers like 30, 40 million people in the U.S. alone, and definitely hundreds of millions of people globally. And I mean, I think that what we want to do is really empower those tens of millions of people to provide more value and to create more satisfaction out of their lives and out of their work, and really create a better experience for themselves, a better work experience for themselves, and in the meantime create more value to their employers and a better career. And I think a lot of what you're going to see from us over the next, call it 3 to 5 to 10 years, is that enablement and empowerment of that very large community of people that I think can benefit from using a platform like ours in order to, improve their careers, become IT workers as well as knowledge workers, or to frankly create their own businesses on top of the platform in building these solutions for other people, or in helping them streamline and organize a lot of their workflow automation.
Cool, awesome. Now, a question that we always try to ask at the end of these: what are kind of two or three things that you wish you knew before you started your entrepreneurship journey, and what would you have done differently if you'd known them before?
I think the first thing, which is the most important, is uh, all of the knowledge that you think you don't know. Like, uh, my first my first mistake was thinking that I had a competitive advantage because I knew something about the field that I came from. And I think that a lot of people make that mistakes. I mentor and I invest in a lot of startups, and I think that people come from the notion that, I know how to build cars, so I'm going to build an electric car, or like, you know. And Elon Musk didn't necessarily know how to build electric cars. He wasn't an engineer at Ford, and I think it's that specific thing that allowed him to create Tesla, right? And I think that the follow up to that is all of the things that you think are self evident, those are the things that provide you with opportunities to succeed, if you believe that they are not true, right? So, like, take everything that you think you know, test whether those assumptions actually hold water, and then test whether breaking one of those self-evident assumptions will provide you with an opportunity to create a business or to enhance that business. And I think those two things together is what makes, outstanding entrepreneurs more than anything else, is when they don't take anything for granted, and when they try to look for competitive advantages in places where other people don't.
Wow, I love that. I really like that. Thank you very much. Well, look, that concludes the questions that we've got here on our interview. So thank you very much for coming along. I really, really appreciate that. Where can the audience find out a little bit more about airSlate?
Go to www.airslate.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Well, I'm sure many people watching will go and check you out. Thanks very much for your time, and I hope we speak again soon.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you very much for inviting me now.
Cheers. Thank you.